Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, or hopefully it's welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Adversity to Awesome. And don't we need more of this, more stories, people coming forth and sharing and inspiring other people around the world. My guest today has been here before, and I'm so excited to have him all to myself for the show. There are no other guests with us today. His name is Dave Sanderson, and he is the president of Dave Sanderson Speaks International. He has quite an illustrious background. He's a TEDx speaker. He is also an author. He is a survivor of the Hudson River plane crash. And today we are going to be talking about loving the free flow. We're going to talk about his experience as a survivor from that crash, and also the Navy SEAL swim and run. So let's bring him on. Welcome, Dave Sanderson.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. Thank you for having me again. I'm really honored to be back.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so excited for this interview because when we met the first time, there were other people there and it was great to experience them. But there's so much more to your story that I'm sure we'll be having you back again, hopefully after this, because there's just not enough time to cover all of it. So let's start off with a little bit about your background. Obviously, being a plane survivor of a crash is just unbelievable. I can't even imagine myself, but you have such an ability to touch the hearts of people with your experiences, but also your passion for helping others. So when did you realize you had this gift?
Well, thank you. It really started going back to 1984 when I had the opportunity and very big blessing of having a gentleman come into my life by the name of Bill, and he became my mentor for 13 years. And he really opened up my eyes to how life is really about giving back and adding value to other people first. And he took me on when he was 77 years old in 1984. And before he passed away in 1997, gave me a gift that candidly was something that I treasure to this day. And now it's what I speak about. It's about the topic we're talking about today. It's how to turn whatever challenges you had, or I call turmoil, into triumph. So I'm very blessed to be able to have someone came into my life that taught me this at a very young age.
That is wonderful, Dave. And our goal today is to touch the lives of many people as possible, but at least one person taking something away from your incredible experience. What do you think the difference is, Dave, between someone who takes adversity and sees it as a challenge and as a learning experience, and someone who just sort of just falls apart and just becomes overwhelmed and struggles?
Great question. I'll give you a little story to give you the answer that I think that at least I found. So here, I was in the green room of Good Morning America about 4 to 6 weeks, I forget exactly the time, after the miracle on the Hudson with some other passengers in the crew. And there was a passenger in the green room that started yelling and just started getting out of sorts. And a lot of people, including myself, were like, what's wrong with him? I mean, we survived a plane crash. We're on national TV. How bad can it really be? But then I found out later that he is going through a divorce and he lost his job. So the meaning he attached to the plane crash was devastation, or the meaning I attached to it came out to turn into a blessing. So the answer to your question is this: what I believe is this: it's the meaning you attach to something produces the emotions that you're going to have, and emotion is your life. And I tell people every day when I talk to us, it's meaning equals emotion, emotion equals life. If you can remember one thing that I talk about, it's that. So the meaning somebody attaches to something, Dr. Jack, I believe, is the reason why some people grow, which is called post-traumatic growth syndrome, which I talk about, or unfortunately go in a different direction.
And I really appreciate that, Dave. Would you say that that intersects with the whole concept of love the free flow?
I agree. Yeah, one of the things that really opened my eyes was that, because all of a sudden I started saying, how can I be less judgmental? How can I open my eyes to be more open than I was? And candidly, I'm not proud of it, but I was pretty focused. I was pretty myopic. I had my focus. I had my vision. But this allowed me to open up, and like you said, the free flow, open up my eyes to be less judgmental and be more accepting of other people, which has opened up more relationships like you're in my relationship in my life. Now, we would never done that if I was stayed the same myopic. This is the way we got to get done. So yes, I think free flow is a great way to say it.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that. Dave, I'm wondering if you would be gracious enough to take us back to that day, the day of the plane crash. How do you feel about that?
Every day I live some portion of that plane crash comes back to me every day. It's really amazing. I guess I got the opportunity to speak again, and I really went more towards the faith aspect yesterday, where people, really want to understand. One of the questions I got was, were you a Christian? Were you a believer before then? I said, yes, I was, but this was a great experience for me to reinforce faith. So I think every day that, something comes up, but that day, as you know, and we talked about, I wasn't supposed to be on the plane. I was scheduled to be on a later flight. I had a first class seat. I was sitting up front, but I wanted to get home early to my wife and my kids because I've been traveling so much that week. So I believe divine grace came in and wanted me to be on that plane. And I think divine grace wanted everybody to be on that plane for a reason. That's my personal belief. But as we know, it's like everything was normal until things started happening and explosions started happening, and all of a sudden people have to make very quick judgments, and you have 155 lives in your hands. I think that's why the crew did a fabulous job that day, and I will be forever grateful. But there's two parts to this, Dr. Jack, as we talked about. It's like, number one, getting the plane down where you at least have a shot, and the crew gets all the credit. But after the plane gets into the river and it's now sinking, because the plane starts sinking immediately, the back end of the plane was down within 4 minutes, was underneath water. So the second part is how do you survive that? And that became a whole team effort to the passengers and the crew and the first responders. So I tell people, I say, there's really two different total environments that are going on. And then you said, just dissect it even more. Then you have the left side of the plane and the right side of the plane. And people say, well, what do you mean? No, it wasn't the same, because the right side of the plane where I went out, there was no crew managing the door. The crew person got injured in the back, and she sliced her leg. So the right side of the plane had to be managed by people like me and other people who had zero training, zero experience, except for leadership. And leaders stepped up. And that's one of the great lessons out of this, Dr. Jack, is that you don't have to know everything about every situation, but if you're a leader, you can give vision and give direction to people in times of crisis or times to get an outcome. And that's what happened on the right side of the plane, where passengers really had to lead and step up when they had zero training on how do you manage getting people out of a plane during a plane crash. So there's so many lessons out of this. So there's so many ways to dissect it. The plane crash, has been a tremendous metaphor on how to turn what I call turmoil into triumph, or we talk about adversity into awesome.
I'm just envisioning the people on the right side of the plane and the plane sinking. And just a quick story. I was on a flight. I was in first class, and there was a lot of turbulence, and the whole plane was shaking up and down. And I didn't know the guy next to me. And I remember at one point, I just grabbed him. I was like, "Oh my God, we're going to die!" And that was just turbulence, like a ridiculous situation. But in your situation, what is going through people's minds? Like when you're in that seat,
Yep.
What were you thinking to yourself? Was it like, "Thank God for what I have," or "Where am I going now?" Or what was it that was happening to you?
I'll sort of segment it out, because after I heard the explosion, I really didn't think much of it, because I've been in situations. I know planes have multiple engines, and I saw fire coming out from beneath the left wing. I was right there in 15A. I saw it. But it's okay. We have another engine, and we're going back to the airport. But then all of a sudden you hear the words, "This is your captain, brace for impact," and you see a bridge coming very quickly at you, and you're descending towards the bridge. The mindset had to shift. It's like, okay, if I can survive this, how am I going to survive this? Because one thing you realize when you're going through something like this is you have no control. And in my world, certainty is a big thing. Most people's world, certainty is a big thing. But now you're in total uncertainty. You have no control over it. The only thing you can control is your mindset. And fortunately for me, I've had a lot of training on how to manage my mind and putting myself in a proper state of mind. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And some people, and one of the things I tell people, one of the things that was really amazing about that experience is because no one lost their sorts. No one lost their mind. No one went into a different sort of, out of control mindset. Because I truly believe if that would have happened, Dr. JACALYN, this thing turns out a whole different way. It doesn't matter if he gets the plane down. If people are going a little bit sideways and you can't get out of the plane and people are pushing each other and you go underwater, it could have been a different mindset. But no one lost their head. So it was eerily quiet on that last, 3 to 4 minutes before we descended into the river. So I think everybody was going through their own thing. It's like, how can I survive? I'm not going to survive. At least let me get some clarity. Let me at least check in. Let me tell my wife I love them or my husband I love them. And I think that what was going on because, you could hear a pin drop. And that was one of the, because you've seen maybe other things in other movies. There's a movie called Flight with Denzel Washington where the plane is going from Orlando to Atlanta and they're crashing and people are going crazy. And many people lost their lives. It's a movie, but people lost their lives because people lost control of their mindset. I just coach people. It's like, when you get in a situation, the first thing you got to control is your mind so you can make rational decisions on how to proceed if you have the opportunity to proceed.
Great points, Dave. Thank you. You actually read my mind because I was thinking of all the movies that we see where there is some type of crash and everyone's going insane and climbing over each other and yelling. And you just described a very different scenario. We've got a comment, which I think is really worth putting up here from Russ. You do not need a title or experience to be a leader. It just happens.
Yeah, I think leadership, you can definitely learn leadership. But when people are thrown into these situations, you see it all the time. I mean, we're seeing it right now in Ukraine, where we had a comedian who's now a president of a country who's now a leader. And he's being seen as a leader where 5 years ago when he was a comedian, no one probably would have even thought of that. So we're seeing this even play out on the world stage now. So I think it's a very accurate comment.
Yes. Thank you so much, Russ, for joining us today. When we think about adversity, like this guy on the ledge over here, right, hanging, which side? It's always the opposite, hanging on. And there'll be people who'll be able to pull themselves up and then people who'll be waiting for someone to come and save them. What are your thoughts about that internal fortitude combined with loving the free flow that helps you pull yourself up over that obstacle or that adversity?
Well, thank you. Because one of the things my mentor really Bill worked with me on is you got to take personal ownership of everything. If I would have let somebody else control my situation that day, let's talk about the plane crash, I probably would have survived. But I was always brought up, and Bill taught me from day one. It's one of the first things he taught me back in 1984 was you got to own your own personal experience. You have to own it. So I think part of that is some people, I'll tell you the other part of the story is there was a lady on the wing on the right side of the plane that wasn't moving. She was in shock. And so sometimes people just sort of lose it. They go into that shock sense, so they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. And when you're in a situation where you're hanging off a ledge or you're standing on a plane wing the plane's going down, sometimes you have to do something radical to break them out of that state of mind because they go in that shock state of mind. So I think, one of the things I learned to answer the question, I would say, is I was very blessed to have a mentor that taught me, and I learned that you have to take personal ownership over everything in your life and don't let anybody control it. I talk about creating your own flight plan for your future.
I love that, creating your flight plan. And when you work with people, what are some of the objections they come up with as to why they can't hold on, why they can't push forward?
I think it comes a lot to the question around references in their life. I think everybody's got their references, but some people aren't ready to they can't really retrieve the references because everybody's had these experiences. I tell people this: no one's going to go through life without something happening. Even the Queen of England's had something happen, right? Everybody's going to have something happen. And we all got references, whether they're our personal references or we use other people's references. But some people can't can't get to their mind quick enough to really bring it to the forefront. So I think that's a part of the challenge why people don't do it. Is like they say, well, I've never been experienced it. Like we're going through right now. I mean, I've talked to many young people, and they're really questioning and challenged with what's going on right now in the world because they've never had to face it. But history repeats itself. And my dad always told me, it's like history repeats itself. So there are references of people doing things and how to reconcile and strategies on how to do it. You just have to be able to be resourceful enough. And like we talk about, free flowing enough, open yourself up enough to go out and find it.
Thank you, Dave. And I want to go back to the plane and the plane as a container of human beings. And to your point, people did not overreact. They did not freak out. They did not lose control of themselves. People stepped up. If you think about any environment, if it's an office building, it's a conference room, it's a family unit, when people get out of control, it can affect the entire group. So on that plane, had people started freaking out, it could have affected you, even though you are a leader, you have the training, but it could have had some impact on everyone else in that room. So my point being, how do we take the negative that's out there all over the place, everywhere we look? Every time we turn on a television or listen to something, there's someone who is negative, someone who is in need of help. How do we step up to help them without losing ourselves and losing the inner drive that we have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to, what you pointed out is exactly correct, because one of the things that I realized after this experience is I was actually at the Orlando airport talking to a captain because I get that opportunity. Just because of what happened to me. And he made a point, and hopefully this is sort of address what you're talking about. He made a point to me. He said, look around, because we're getting on the same plane. Look around the passengers. Okay. So look at the passengers, mostly people who are on vacation, older people, families. He said, the plane you were on, 90% of the people were business people. So people who usually have to handle business situations are in a mindset of having to handle and making decisions and handling problems. So your variable was only maybe 10% of the people that did not have that. So one of the reasons I believe people didn't freak out on the plane that day is because of that. Because there were so many business people that they were in the decision-making mode, they could handle things themselves. So when I'm talking or working with other people, how do I step up and not help people who are in a challenging situation? It always starts with asking questions. To me, I try to find out, I ask. There's two major questions I ask, Dr. JACALYN. I learned this a long time ago. What's most important to you, and what has to happen for you to realize that? When I ask those questions to somebody, all of a sudden they got to go back in their mind, start thinking, it's like, what is most important? Is this something over here most important, or is this something where is a nuisance to me right now? And what is most important? Once I find out that, I said, what has to happen? And also I put them in that creative, resourceful mindset. We talk about the free flow, that mindset of resourcefulness. And all of a sudden we start coming up with ideas on how they can turn this thing around very quickly. So that's sort of a story, and when I talk to people, how I would address that situation.
I'm just revisiting what you shared about the fact that the people on the plane were almost entirely business people. Yep. And had that been your typical family vacation or people going to Disney or wherever, a completely different set of circumstances.
Totally different. So the passenger makeup of the plane will tell you a lot what's going to happen. It will tell you a lot what's going to happen. So one of the things I do, just when I get on a plane, I always look around me. What kind of people are on the plane? And usually places I go, like in Orlando or Tampa or places, are generally not places where a lot of business. There's some of us, of course. So now I know that if something does happen, I probably got to step up and handle some things, because, I'm going to, you're a family of four, you got two kids with you, what are you going to focus on? I'm going to focus on my kids. I'm not going to focus on how to get out the door. Right. So that's why I'm always telling people, focus on the doors. Likewise, they can determine the outcome of what's going to happen. Fortunately, that day we had two people on the doors on each side who stepped up and got the doors out. Because I said this on an interview the other day, if those doors don't get out, now you're down to two doors in the front instead of four doors or six doors out in the back. And now you got a different situation. So you got to know your surroundings. You got to know your passenger makeup. And it goes for anything in business. Likewise, you go to a business meeting, look around you. What kind of people are with me today? It's going to determine sort of how the meeting's going to go, or how some of the decisions may come down.
Dave, I imagine when people see you wherever it is that you are with them, they must have a big sigh of relief. For like, yes, thank you. He's here with us. If something happens, he can save us.
I've had flight attendants come up and rub my head, kind of like a Buddha thing, right? For good luck. So yeah, you said I have that happen occasionally, and so I'm just honored that people remember me.
Dave, there's so much more to discuss. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I'd love to explore. You're in the spotlight all the time, right? And you're a public speaker and you're in the public domain anyway, but how has that affected you, if at all, being famous? So we're going to take a quick break, and we're also going to pay respect and honor to people of Ukraine. So right now we're going to take a moment, and we'll be back on USA Global TV with Dave.
Take a moment.
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 So I've had the privilege of photographing some incredible people over the years, and during each shoot I've asked the subject to close their eyes and take themselves to a peaceful place just for a few seconds. I've found that this really helps to refresh the energy between the camera and the subject. They had an energy that was quite special and quite different from the rest of the shoot. The collection grew, and now it feels the right time to use it for something good. I think it'd be amazing if we could help to raise awareness and involve people in the discussion about mental health. So what we're asking to do is for everyone to upload their own self-portraits. All of these portraits will become part of a massive artwork. I'm really excited to see this project go from hundreds of pictures to thousands of pictures. Essentially, an ever-evolving artwork that says we're all in this together.
Close your eyes and take a moment.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diane Floyd Bame's A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, 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 kapayapaan.
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at DianeFloydBame.com.
welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show is Adversity to Awesome. And here to exemplify that is Dave Sanderson, motivational speaker and survivor of the Hudson River plane crash. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to explore some other topics with you. I would love to know how this entire process of surviving and people looking at you, rubbing your head, saying thank you that he's here today, he can save us. How has that affected you to this new level of fame that you have?
Oh, thank you for asking me that. As I was thinking about that question, it reminded me about 3 weeks after the plane incident, plane crash. I was heading to Los Angeles to be on some of the shows out in Los Angeles. And at that time, I was head of security for Tony Robbins. And Tony was a great mentor to me, a great friend to me. And he asked me to call him when I got out there. So I did. And we had about a 2-hour talk, and he was coaching me on some things. But one of the things he said to me is this. He said, always remain humble, have humility. He said, that's part of the challenge a lot of people have. And something like this happens to somebody. That they all of a sudden goes to their heads to just always stay humble and have humility, and everything will serve you well. And so, Dr. JACALYN, that's what I try to do every day. I ask my creator for humbleness and humility, so every day I can just focus on how to add value first before I add value to myself.
And you know what, Dave, that makes you really likable. It makes people really want to connect with you because you are humble, you are authentic, and it doesn't appear to have gone to your head. It's you're giving gratitude and you're looking at life from a different perspective.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about now, especially, one of the big realizations after the Navy SEAL swim is about gratitude. It all starts with gratitude. That is the first key cornerstone of turning from adversity to awesome or turmoil to triumph. It starts with having gratitude, giving thanks to something bigger than yourself.
And I would imagine that working with Tony Robbins, who's known all over the world, and everybody just, I think he's amazing. But that experience in and of itself had to have taught you so many additional life lessons.
It came at a very opportune time. Bill, as I mentioned, my first mentor, Bill, in 1997, he passed away of lung cancer. And he shared so many great lessons and left me so many things that I'm now sharing. But about 3 or 4 months later, that's when Tony asked me to be his assistant head of security and then later head of security. And I think in life, sometimes when one person exits your life, another person comes in. And sometimes you maybe don't recognize it, but it always happens that way. And it's sort of like I talk about Star Wars, right? When one person goes, the next one comes in. So Tony brought me in, and I think he saw something in me likewise. But then he taught me some of these distinctions of what I learned from Bill on a different level, and helped me to serve at a different level. And really, it was a gift given to me that, Kaylee, I think, and one of the things I talk about, and you know this and probably in your life, is proximity is power. Being around people who have influence in a lot of different ways. If you're coming from your heart, instead of asking for something, that will gravitate to you. And I was very blessed that he took me on for many, many years and mentored me and let me be around him.
And you also touched on something that I think is so important, especially in the world today. When we look at leadership, anyone and everyone, to the gentleman Russ's point, anyone can be a leader. Leaders can lead with their ego. They can lead with their heart. And the work that you're doing, you are a leader and you are showing up every day from a heart-centric place. And I think it's so important that people realize why we need to lead with heart, to let other people know that we are there for them, that we are there to help them, whether it's one person or many. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. Because my current mentor's name is Don Barden. And we've had this discussion, what you just mentioned, because one of the things he's really helped me refine and help bring out of me is the servant leadership mindset, is, serving first and focusing on service to others before you serving yourself. So I think it's definitely been a gradual change of mind. But I think when you lead from the heart, people feel this. And one of the things I've learned, unless I've missed some of the things I've been reading, is if you look at the body, one of the places in the body where cancer doesn't attack is the heart. And there must be a reason for that. So if you lead with your heart, you're not leading with something that's can damage somebody else. At least somebody can feel it. If they can't receive it, they need to probably open their heart up a little bit more. So I believe, it all starts from, the heart centric, giving out, and servant leadership is a way to be able to portray that.
Dave, I never really thought about the fact about cancer not affecting the heart.
I never heard of any. I've done research. I haven't found any research that says, you ever heard of heart cancer?
No, I've never heard of it either.
Never heard of it either.
That.
Yeah.
You touched on the Navy SEAL swim and run. So for people, we are a global platform. For people who are not aware, what is a Navy SEAL? And what is this swim and run? And why is it important to you?
Well, I'm honored. Yeah, Navy SEALs, as you may or may not know, are the special operations of the Navy, where they do special, very dangerous things to be able to help have all of us have freedom. And you may or may not even know who they are sometimes, but the Navy SEAL swim and run started about 3 years ago, and it was a way initially to bring the SEALs together to sort of commemorate and help homeless veterans. And it's expanded now. And so last year, about a year ago, in fact, next week, a year ago, I was in the airport in Newark, New Jersey, and my friend, who's a Navy captain in the Navy, asked me if I wanted to think about going back into the Hudson River and getting some redemption from the Hudson River by swimming with the Navy SEALs and swimming with her. And I had to think about it because I had swam since 1979. And the Hudson River is not only cold, but it's pretty rough. But for 100 days, I trained from April to August 6th, and I was given a gift of having a lady who coaches Olympic swimmers. And she took me on from basically zero to be able on August 6th swim from New Jersey to Statue of Liberty to Ellis Island to New York City and end up at the 9/11 Memorial, because it was all about giving thanks for the 20th anniversary of those folks who gave their lives on 9/11. So it's a swim and a run, but it's a way to really thank those people who have given themselves selflessly to be able to serve not only in the military, but also first responders and those people who've given their lives in other ways. And I was very honored to be asked to do that, but there were so many things that I learned out of that experience, not only how to swim again, but there was a really big lesson that came to me. And it was something that's changed not only my life, but changed how I even, when I talk about it, now what I write about. So, I'm very blessed.
Congratulations, Dave. That's outstanding. And when you shared what the environment was like with the cold water, you haven't been swimming, it's choppy and rough, it's a long distance. There were a zillion reasons you could have said no, but you didn't. You stepped up and you said yes. What was that training process like? Because it couldn't have been easy. And again, many times you could have said, hey, tried, but I'm out. Yeah,
that's just you say that, because when my Navy SEAL buddy's named Scuba, and he told me day one, he asked me to show up at 5:00, and I barely got to 25 yards in. He said, I'm not going to take you out of this, but you will take yourself out of this. And that sort of challenged me a little bit. But it's also, I knew I had a bigger mission. I'm like, this is really not about me. It's about those homeless vets and those people who gave their lives on 9/11. So I had the mission. That's step one, is you got to have clarity of the mission. But the real question comes down to, like you just said, is how am I going to do it? And one of the things I've learned through the last several years is this: you got to find your who for your how. You can't do this alone. So unfortunately, that's why I mentioned, her name is Coach Patty, my coach. So for 100 days at 5 a.m. every morning, we got up and we started on how to breathe and how to swim. And every Wednesday we went out into the lake, into the open water, where I could get acclimated to open water. And I'd already been to Hudson River, so I knew how cold it was. But I didn't really have to. I had to swim 15 yards that day in Miracle on Hudson. I got to swim 3.2 miles now. So it really came down to having clarity of the mission, that I knew I was doing something bigger than myself, and having Patty not only coach me, but she bought in to the mission. And most importantly, also, I had a wingman. My buddy Suzanne Lesko, she's a captain in the Navy, and she was my wingman, and we vowed to stay with each other the entire time. So I had a wingman, and that's so important, not only to do something like we just did, but in life, you got to have a wingman, someone you can trust implicitly with your life, with your understanding who you are, and you're there, good, bad, or ugly.
Dave, that sounds so incredible. What an amazing experience. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I would have been afraid for many reasons because I'm afraid of swimming with fish. That sounds ridiculous. But I can only imagine the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual outcomes that you grew as a person from doing that. Would you share some of them with us?
Yeah, I'll share with you the moment, because most people think the moment they talk to me about this is, yeah, you got redemption, right? You made it to the other side. Yay, Dave. And that is good. But there are really two things that really I want to share with you. Number one is, one of the things I learned in my life is you want to leave on your terms. And the first time during a plane crash, I didn't leave on my terms. Someone else had to really help me. So this was number one, about leaving on my terms. But second, something happened about 400 meters out from New York, right outside of Ellis Island, as we were out in the middle of the Hudson River. And I couldn't find Suzanne. The waves were really high and it was going crazy. I just yelled out, I said, Suzanne. And she said, yeah, I'm here. I said, I love you. She goes, I love you back. And that was the moment I realized this whole thing was about gratitude. It's about how many people in your life have to help you to get to where you are, and having somebody love you enough to go all in with you. There's people out there that will do it, but that's when my turmoil really shifted. That was my victory. The victory wasn't getting to the other end. That was great. I had no doubt I was going to get there whether I died or not. I was going to get there. But knowing someone, having gratitude fill your heart, knowing that in life, there's other people that have helped you get to this point, whether it's your mom, your dad, your spiritual leader, right? Whoever you believe in, friends. And I had Bill and I had Tony. I had so much regret. So now it's all about the way to turn adversity to awesome, or turmoil to triumph, starts with having gratitude. Because one thing I believe in is this, Dr. Jock, is this: grace is fueled by gratitude. The more gratitude you give, the more grace you get. The more grace you get, the better opportunity you have to not only serve, but be served.
Wow, Dave, thank you so much for sharing that personal moment. I can envision you in the water and not being able to see her, and she yells that out. I love it. It's like chokes me up. I would love for you to also share with our audience what you just talked about is the journey. It's not the destination. And so many times people want to rush through everything. Oh, I've got to get to this. I've got to get this goal, that goal. What about enjoying the experience and the different pieces that come up for us, whether it could be painful, it could be rejoiceful, but they're all happening for a reason. To your point, you were on that plane that day for a reason.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. And you're exactly right. So most people, and I've done this in the past. I've done it. I try to rush through some things in my life, but the older you get, the more wisdom you get, and the more wisdom you get, you understand it is about the journey. So how do you get there? All the people that come into your life to help you get there, and the experiences you have. And no one promised you a rose garden, right? I mean, life is not about pixie dust and sunshine. There's going to be adversity. Even if you believe in a creator by the name of Jesus, he had adversity. But you know what? He had to overcome it. He had to endure it. It was about the journey. So if you read, whatever you believe in your spiritual beliefs, it starts with that first step, and about all the steps that have to take place. And ultimately, you get to the end if you have perseverance and focus and all these things we talk about. But the journey is where the growth comes from, and that's where I think I've grown immensely. And Kaylee, if I haven't said it directly, I'll say it directly now. The plane crash was a blessing. It happened in my life for a reason. I was on that plane for a reason. God set me on a different direction in my life and gave me a different vision of what my life. And in my new book, From Turmoil to Triumph, I talk about, it's called, having an alternative, vision for your future. And that's what happens. Once you go through something like, whether it's a plane crash, whether it's a car auto crash, cancer, whatever it may be, all of a sudden you get an alternative vision for your future. And then all of a sudden, we talked about, life opens up and you roll with it.
Thank you, Dave. And you also talked a little bit about a wingman, a wing person being there for you. I'm wondering, as you went through this experience with the plane crash, and now you have television interviews that you're doing, radio interviews, you're in high demand for speaking engagements. Were there people in your life who sort of were not happy for you? Because there's always people on the sidelines that are,
Yep.
How did you deal with that?
Superb question, because Tony told me that would happen likewise. There's going to be some people that are not going to be your cheerleaders, right? You're always going to be questioning some things. And there were some people like that. And at first, I took it personally. But then I realized, I said, every one of us has to make our own choices. I've had some people say, how can you make money doing what you're doing and what you're doing? And, you shouldn't be making any money. And I was like, you know what? I said, I made the choice to go out and share my story and share how I handle this. People can, if they're so enlightened, if they want to bring me in, great. If they don't, I'm fine with that. But I've had some negative naysayers likewise. I say, you know what? I made a choice to do what I did. You make a choice to do what you did, and you make a choice on how you want to live your life. I want to live a life of positivity, because one of my messages is hope. Suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, character produces hope. So if you believe that, which I do, you got to go through suffering to get to hope. So, I think that's sort of my motto, what I talk about. In every talk, I'd say that. Suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, character produces hope.
And that's what we're all about here too at USA Global TV is hope. And Dave, I think it's important for our audience to realize that whatever your journey is, when you find your passion and you find your purpose, there may be, I'm going to say may, even though this probably will, be people with rocks, and there might be people with boulders. So they are distractions that are there for a purpose, I believe, to see our resilience, our will, our strength to continue pursuing on. Dave, what's next for you?
Well, I'm really excited. I mentioned my book will be published here in a couple of months. I'm really going through some final edits right now. The third will be number 3, From Turmoil to Triumph. And also I'll be publishing my own magazine. And people say, wow, why are you doing that? I said, well, because some people just like opening a magazine and reading about doing things in a magazine instead of having a book. So we're going to be, I'll be producing and publishing my first magazine coming this summer. And then we're actually going to do a live event in the Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth area to bring people in to sort of teach them, give them this immersion, these things that we've learned about coming from the heart and how to do this. So there's so many things that I'm really blessed to do. And, and I'm honored to be with people like you and have the opportunity to be in the media and share these different distinctions, because there's so many people in pain right now. And it's like, that's one of the reasons I did my TED Talk, post-traumatic growth syndrome. I want to share the strategies on how to grow from traumatic life events to grow out of this turmoil. And that's my mission right now.
What a fabulous mission it is, Dave. So many exciting things for you. I noticed behind you, you have in a frame, the American Red Cross. Can you share a little bit about what that is and what it means to you?
Oh my goodness. This is actually came from, I got to tell you what this is, and I'll tell you how it came. So back in the last hurricane in Southern Florida, which devastated Southern Florida, I went down for a day to serve and try to help, give some hope. This was signed. This is one of the things they were signed by everybody who was at that location at the hurricane. So I've done over 170 Red Cross events, and because they were there 3 times for me during the plane Miracle on the Hudson. When I got off to shore, there was a guy with a blanket. When someone got me some clothes, I didn't have any clothes, and when I got back, someone was there with my family. So I have a passion for not only supporting the Red Cross, their mission is ending human suffering, which is in total alignment with what I do and what I speak about. So I have a passion for the Red Cross, help raising money for the Red Cross. Right now, it's all about blood and platelets, especially with the last couple of years with COVID. So I was very honored they gave me that, and as a remembrance of my day with them after the hurricane.
Oh, what an honor. That is beautiful. Dave, for people who are watching or listening and they're in a bad place, maybe their mental health isn't that great, maybe they're homeless, maybe they're involved in the war, a refugee, what are some small things, when I say small, things that they can do themselves to find hope in everyday life?
Well, first, I think start focusing, giving first. Go out and do something for somebody else. And that starts with moving your body. So number 1, you got to change your state. You got to change your physiology, number 1. Number 2, focus on finding some place you can give yourself, whether it is blood, whether it is time, whether it's treasure, give. But number 3 is one of the things I teach in my course is about the question, it's called the primary question. What's the question you keep running through your head? Most people who are down or having a challenge have something negative. The question may be, why does this always happen to me? Why is this happening in the world? I don't know what to do, instead of turning it around and changing it to something more empowering. So one of the first things I would say is change your physiology. Second thing is find some place to give immediately. Give immediately. Like I said, go to the Red Cross, volunteer, whatever it may be. And third, what's that question that runs in your head? And let's work on that question and turn it around and say, how can I add even more value and enjoy the process? Instead of, why does this always happen to me?
Exactly. It could be, why is this happening for me?
That's right. Exactly. It's that question that keeps revolving in people's heads that get people down. And as we know, we talked about this before. Last year, it was not just about COVID. It was about social justice questions. It was about police. It was about the election that kept going on, and it stacked on people. And so they saw no hope. And that's why a lot of people are challenged right now. They can't see, they don't have a pathway out. So our goal, my goal should be, is how can we help people find that pathway out of turmoil, how to get out of the situation they're in, at least give them hope that there is a future for tomorrow, because there is. Everything happens for a reason and a purpose. Even what's going on in Ukraine is happening. We may not like it, but it's happening for a reason. And now it's up to us is make sure we can do something positive with it.
And let people know that they're not alone.
That's right. There's somebody there. Everybody's got to have a wingman. And if you need a wingman, pick up the phone and call somebody, right? Go down, Go to McDonald's, be around people so you're not alone.
Exactly. And I love that whole idea about giving blood, because we're able to do it.
And it's such need right now. It is such needed right now. So, especially what's happening in Kentucky, because there's still, I'm going on my soapbox a little bit, but I just talked to somebody who just got out of Kentucky, still 3 months later after the tornado. They're still in need. So there's places you can give. Focus on giving first. Get out of yourself. It's not about you.
Dave, I have had such a great time with you today. I hope you'll come back.
How can people come back?
Thank you. How can people reach out to you, and who would you like to reach out to you? And third question, how can people find out about this event that's coming up?
Thank you. So the best way to contact me is either LinkedIn, because I do a weekly blog on LinkedIn and I always interact. So LinkedIn is David Sanderson on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, Dave Sanderson Speaks. It's under construction, but I still respond to that. And I think the third question was, what kind of people? So right now, anybody who may be going through a challenging time or is wants to grow, is maybe a plateau to say, you know what, I've had a tough time breaking through. Let's talk about how you can break through to get to your outcome, whatever that outcome might be. We'll talk about the strategies on how to do that, because I actually did it with the Navy SEAL swim. I've got the strategy. I know the plan. And third, the event's going to be the second week in Dallas. We're having Dallas Fort Worth. I'll be posting that on my website. So if anybody's interested, I would about 2 weeks from now, we're going to be having it up on the website. It's going to be a really event it's really about futuring your future vision and how to really set your future vision by using some of these tools that we've been talking about today.
And Dave, are you available to speak at various engagements if people are looking for a speaker?
Most definitely. I'm very honored to do that. If anybody's open, would love to not only know the story, but also hear how to really, come from personal leadership, which I talk about. I'd be honored to be able to speak for your organization.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been such a wonderful time and opportunity to have you here today and to learn from you and to just take in what you have been through. That it's almost like the most unbelievable story that you survived that crash. And now your life is and has always been about helping other people, but you're doing it across the world, which I think is truly a gift for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jai. I look forward to being with you again, and may God bless you, and may God bless the audience today. And God bless the people in Ukraine.
God bless you as well, and God bless our audience. We're going to end today with a clip called We Stand Together. Here, let's take a look. And Dave and I say goodbye for now, and I'll be right back with United Kitchens after this.
Just call my name If you ever feel down or feel afraid, 'cause nothing is stronger than men who stand as one for a long time.
All the things that passed, million times the troubles seem to be
Easy and days felt so bright with you.
I remember you always been my family member.
That's the time when we need to stand together. I made this song for you. Hope it reaches and puts a little bit
Smile on you
and fills your mind with hope, because you're not alone. We're together in this love. We stand forever.
Peace is what we need. Everyone knows the truth, no matter which side you pick. You might realize
You're not